Step into realms where the heart takes flight, where strategy meets the edge of night. The dungeons, dragons, and psychology parts. Prepare your mind. Now be our guest.
In tabletop role-playing games, where imagination reigns supreme, the DM wields a power unparalleled. They are the architect of the world, the weaver of tales, the conductor of destiny. But shouldn't this power be shared? What if the DM became a guide, a facilitator, a catalyst for the collective creative of all the players? Today, we're going to delve into the realm of collaborative storytelling, where the DM becomes a navigator on a journey through the uncharted territories. A journey where every twist, every turn, every adventure is shaped not by a single mind, but by the harmonious convergence of the many. This is what I like to call the roadmap method. I'm Robert Walker, author of Session Zero, the DMG to writing great campaigns in any system. And this is my show where I teach collaborative storytellers how to have more immersive campaigns using psychology. So today, we're going to delve into a unique approach that I have been using to run my games for quite a long time. It emphasizes collaboration and player agency, but also helps a DM sort of keep their stories on the rails, at least in terms of the starting point and the destination. This is what I like to call the roadmap method. So for this, imagine that you're on a road trip with your best friends. You've got a destination in mind, you've planned out the trip, but the journey itself is really the most important part of the final destination. It's the memories that you make along the way. This is the concept behind this roadmap method. As the DM, you're the driver. You're steering the vehicle towards the final destination, the overall goal. However, your players are the passengers. They get to influence the route, decide on when they need to take pit stops, and they share stories along the way. The key to this method is that the DM does, of course, as usual, have ultimate control over the game world, over its mechanics. This is them driving the car. They have control over which way they turn, when they brake, when they accelerate, even sometimes what sort of music and created as they're driving. But they also need to be willing to let go of some of that control, encouraging the players to contribute to the narrative, add to the journey. You're fostering this sense of ownership and investment in the game world, in your road trip together. This creates a more engaging and memorable experience for everyone that's involved in the story. Let's talk about how to build a game in this fashion. Well, first of all, just like when you're planning a road trip with your friends, you establish a shared vision. Before starting your campaign, you should do the same thing. This includes having a conversation with your players about the overall goals and the themes and character ideas. This helps ensure everyone is on the same page and can contribute meaningfully to the narrative. This is your session zero. This is what you do before taking a road trip. You decide, hey, what route are we going to take? What planned stops do we have along the way? What sort of pace are we going to set as we drive? Are we going to be staying in inns or sleeping in the car? All these sort of little things are similar to setting your session zero expectations when you're writing a D&D campaign and you're involving the players in that narrative. Now, you need to give your players that agency, give them opportunities to make choices that will affect the story. This could involve deciding which path to take in a dungeon, choosing which skills they want to use in a social encounter, even suggesting new plot points or new quest ideas, going completely off script and taking an entirely different route. Now, if you have your roadmap of where your story starts and where you want it to end, just like your roadmap of where the journey starts and where your road trip is going to end, then you have a layout of all the different ways you can reach that destination, even if the path that is taken is wildly different from the straight path that you had from starting to finishing. If you take a trip across the country, there are hundreds, thousands of different routes that you can still reach the same destination. Some of them have more sightseeing, some of them are straighter and more direct, but letting your players choose when to veer off the path that you had planned, you can still find your way back to that path and eventually back to the destination that you have in mind. As a DM, you need to be prepared to adapt to your players' choices. This could mean changing your plans or even introducing new elements into the story that they have brought in through their own decisions and their places they want to go sightseeing and take pit stops and veer off from the path that was originally chosen. This is where you let them change the story. It's one of the most exciting parts because sometimes the ideas that your players have are better than yours. This is why you need to listen and pay attention to your players' ideas, listen to their feedback, show that you value their input, and it encourages them to participate more fully in the game. When they feel like they are not necessarily in the driver's seat, but can affect where the route is going, which direction that the car is driving, they'll be way more invested in the story. And the memories that are created along the way are going to be way better when everyone is involved in the creation of those memories, not when it's just one person's idea of how we're going and how we're going to get there. Let's break it down a little bit further into understanding the concepts of this method. So first of all, you have your starting point, right? This is the beginning of your campaign, the starting location in which the characters have come together and adventure is about to set forth. This is just like the starting point of your journey. Like this is where everybody gets together, piles into the car, and sets off on the journey with the expectations that were set in session 0 or your pre-meeting that you had before the game. Now, the destination, of course, is the overarching goal of the campaign. It could be defeating the powerful villain or finding the lost artifact or whatever case it may be. What is the climax, the conclusion of the game that you eventually want to get your players to in that story? And then you have the route. This is the plot and the story arcs of the campaign, including the major events, the quests, the encounters. This is the major planned route on a road trip. It's the highways, the detours, the scenic byways, all of that. Now, this is where the players should have a lot of agency in determining the path of this story. You have your starting point. You're setting up the world for them to play in. You've set the expectations. They've created their characters, shared their backstories. You have that starting point, and you know what you want your destination to be. You have a general idea of here is the big goal of this campaign. This is where they have to get to. But how they get there, the paths they take, the highways they choose to travel down, all of that can be player decision, player driven, with the DM being flexible and responding to how do I realign the path that I have set with the roads that they have chosen to take. And eventually you can get there. You just have to be flexible and think about the way that the path they've taken aligns with the story that you wanted to tell, the goal you wanted to get to. Now, the passengers are, of course, your players or their characters in the game. The vehicle that you're traveling in would represent the game system, the rules, the mechanics, the framework for your adventure, and how you're using those rules to move towards the destination that you have in mind. Of course, your pit stops are the short breaks. These can be side quests. They can be staying at an inn or exploring a nearby dungeon or any manner of things that the players decide to do that interests them along the way, and they want to take that moment and explore that piece of the world. This is really where your world gets fleshed out, right? When you're looking at a map and you're seeing, okay, here's the starting point, the destination, and here's a few places we'll stay along the way. But what really fleshes out your journey is all those other little things that you uncover along the way, things that you didn't even know about, things that you didn't plan for. And yet that's where memories are really made, when you have those moments where fun conversation happens and unexpected twists take place. Maybe you encounter some danger or some, rival or whatever the case may be, but something different happens that you weren't expecting. That's where the memories are really made. You have to plan for the unexpected encounters, plot twists, challenges that can arise during the adventure. in a road trip, this is like traffic jams or flat tires or weather changes or things that pop up that you were not expecting to happen along the journey, but they do. Just like that, those sort of things will create memories and create bonding experiences in your stories. So when something unexpected happens, embrace that. Know that that is part of the story. That is part of the memory that's being made. These are the shared experiences and the bonds formed between players and the DM during the game. And this is what will make your players think that you are a fantastic dungeon master. When the story belongs not just to you, but it belongs to everyone at the table. I mean, that is the value of collaborative storytelling. They wove the story as much as you. Just because you decided on the starting point and eventually found a way to guide them to the conclusion you were wanting to have them experience, they're going to love all of that because their experience along the way was not just yours, it was theirs as well. So be ready to adapt to those choices and embrace the unexpected events. Find a way to navigate the decisions that they have made back onto your path towards the destination. Even if it takes way longer to get there, that really doesn't matter. What really matters is that you're creating a shared collaborative experience together. And even though you're the one driving the vehicle, you're all on the journey together, and you all are making decisions along the way. Take out your pencil and paper because it's time for Tricks of the Trade. Today, for Tricks of the Trade, I want to talk about a few different ways in which you can implement this method into your own game use and give you an idea of how you can use it not just for an entire campaign, but how you can use it in small pieces of a campaign. So the first one, let's talk about a dynamic dungeon. So imagine that you're running a dungeon crawl. This is very typical in most TTRPG games. Instead of having a predetermined layout for the dungeon, give your players options to influence the dungeon's structure. For example, give them the option to take a safe route or take a risky shortcut. Then you can build the dungeon from that as they go along, making each room either more dangerous and having fewer of them, or a little bit safer and taking a longer amount of time to get through the dungeon. This way you can create ideas that you maybe wouldn't have had them encounter otherwise, and it gives them the directive of how they want to go about this very specific roadmap, how they want to take this very short road trip within the greater spectrum of your entire game. It will keep the game fresh, and it will reward the player for their choices and give them the sort of individual session that they're looking for. They might be in the mood for something grand and risky and dangerous, or they might be in a stage where their character just wants to take the safer route, even if it takes a little bit longer, and get to the end without so much risk to their player or their character. Giving them the opportunity to choose lets them shape the adventure and gives them a lot of independence in the game, a lot of collaboration to the story. Next, let's talk about an entirely collaborative campaign arc. So using this method, shaping the overall campaign, start with a general outline of the story, but as you're giving that, allow your players to influence specific events and decisions that lead to the climax. These are those pit stops we're talking about. For example, if your players want to pursue a side quest, then incorporate that side quest into the main plot later in a way that feels organic and meaningful. Make it feel to them like the side quest that they chose was part of the main plot the entire time. I think this is one of my favorite ways to encourage collaborative storytelling, is that the route that the players decide to take becomes the main path all along. Now, this can be a little bit tricky if you're new to the idea and you're new to the concept, but just remember, it's a collaborative storytelling game. So don't try and derail them from their own ideas to get back on the railroad story that you had created. No, take the path that they have chosen, follow them down that path, and then find a way to navigate that path back towards the destination that you have in mind. And then that winding, different path that they chose will be the path that was always intended because it is the one that you created together. Now, next, I love the idea of encouraging player agency in creating NPCs. Now, this is something that I have done before where at the beginning of the game, I will either in characters' backstories have them create a few people that they knew in the world or they know because of their backstories, and then I will incorporate those NPCs into the storyline or into the plot. But you can also give your players clues or hints about an NPC that you had created and allowing them to fill in the gaps and develop their own relationships and maybe even help write some NPC backstories. That can be a lot of fun when the players have investment in the creating of the world as well. Then their decision to role play and engage in the game can just be enhanced even further. So if you incorporate a few things like these into your games, you can create a much more immersive and collaborative storytelling experience for everyone involved. So remember here, the goal is to strike a balance between providing the framework and allowing your players to shape the narrative. This is letting them take those side paths, choose those pit stops, but always knowing what the intended destination is and slowly veering the vehicle back onto the roads that will eventually lead you towards the destination you have created or you have in mind. It is possible that their decisions will completely derail that, and that's okay. Just remember that the story you tell together is always going to be better than the story you had forced them into. Even if it was a good story, the one you create as a team in collaboration is always going to be the superior narrative. So don't forget that as you move forward. That is all for today, Cyclothids. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't checked it out yet, or you haven't noticed yet, if you watch on YouTube, I have switched from just audio over images to doing full recorded video episodes. So feel free to check that out. As always, we appreciate any reviews on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever platform you might use if it allows reviews. And until next time, we'll see you next session.